going to start with the 4-thread overlock stitch, and that is one of the most commonly used serger stitches, and I'll show you why after we get it threaded. We need to make sure that the left and right needles are in, and we'll double check your stitch length. It's recommended between 2.5 and 3.5, and remember stitch length is right here, and you want to make sure that it's not on the rolled settings for the overlock. So let's get that right in at 2.5 to 3.5. Okay, and then it recommends your width at 6.0 to 7.5. And what we're going to do, so I can show you how wide we can get this stitch, let's take it all the way up to 7.5. Here's your stitch width right here. And we're going to take it to the widest width at 7.5. Make sure that your stitch selector is on A, which is over here. We have it on A. Your differential feed needs to be on N. And then if you'll notice on your quick reference guide, it points out what your wave selector needs to be selected on, and we are doing an overlock. So make sure that this switch is selected on overlock. Okay, so once we've made sure that all of our settings are correct, we can go ahead and thread. And what's great about sergers with Extraordinaire, we don't have to thread this in any specific order. So let's go ahead and open up these doors. Okay, this lever here is going to close these loopers, and we need to do that first. We need to switch it to threading. All right, so let's move that down. And then to engage your loopers, you'll turn your hand wheel towards you until these click, okay? So that's where you want to be focusing as you turn your hand wheel. And it might take 1 or 2 good turns until those pop into place, okay? That engages your loopers so that when we thread, when we push air through and push that thread through these ports, there's a complete path for your thread to follow. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to start with your lower looper thread. We're going to pull it up to the telescopic thread guide, run that through your guide here. And then I like to hold this kind of like dental floss. We're going to straddle that guide back there and make sure you hear it click. Bring it on down your thread guide and catch the hook right here. Then you want to pull a good amount of thread out. You can touch your leg as a good guide to pull enough thread out. Let's place about 1 inch or so in your lower looper port here. Okay, make sure you have plenty of thread pulled out. And you'll simply push this button and it will blow your thread through. Okay, so you'll see that it shot out your lower looper down here. All right, I'm going to pull that through to where you have a straight, nice line there. Okay, let's go ahead and move to your upper looper. So we're going to go up here. We're going to grab your thread and again pull it up to your thread guide. Pop it in your thread guide back here. Bring it on down the thread path. Hook it again right there. Pull a lot of thread out and insert your thread into your upper looper. All right, let's go ahead and push the button again to thread. Okay, and you'll notice that it does both loopers at the same time. I didn't have to switch a knob to select, so you could, technically, you could thread both of these at the same time. Before we thread our needles, I may have forgotten to mention that you have to have your presser foot up in the up position before you thread, and that allows your thread to lay in the correct position so that you get perfect stitches every time. Okay, so we have it up and we'll go ahead and start on your right needle. Up through the thread guide, grab the thread guide back there, come on down and catch this hook. And then this is somewhat like a sewing machine, the path that you follow, and you'll catch the hook right here. And before we actually thread our needle, let's put that back. Before we actually thread our right needle, let's go ahead and thread the left thread. Okay, follow our thread guide, catch the hook up and around, and the hook above the needle. All right, so we're going to thread our right needle first. Make sure that this little slide here is selected in the right position. Push the needle threader down, grab your right thread, and you're going to straddle it in between these 4 prongs. Okay, and go back and touch the needle. And then once you've made sure that the thread is hooked, you can let go and raise the needle threader. And there's a little loop back behind here. You'll want to pull on the loop behind the needle and bring it all the way through to the back. Let's go ahead and thread your left needle. Slide over to L. Push your needle threader down. And again, straddle that thread in between those 4 prongs. Okay, let it set there and push this lever down again. And make sure you pull that loop behind the needle. Because if you pull the thread in front of the needle, it will just unthread it. All right, we're going to take all 3 of these threads, your needle threads and your upper looper threads, and pull those to the back and underneath your foot. Okay, and then you'll want to grab that lower looper thread there too. Pull that back and underneath your foot. All right, one more thing we need to do and we get to start serging. So we need to move this stitch selector up to serging. And let me just show you real quick. If we close those doors and forget, it's not going to let you close it. Okay, so you can't start serging without changing that up. Okay, wasn't that easy? So now we're going to show you several different ways to apply the 4-thread overlock with a couple of different fabrics. Okay. So first, this is something I like to do a lot. I'll stitch dresses together like this even, is just it creates a seam and a 4-thread overlock at the same time. So let me show you that. We're going to run 2 layers of fabric through the machine. You don't have to lift your presser foot up, so we can put that down. If you'll notice, these feed dogs are peeking out here, and that will grab the fabric and pull it on through. Okay? And then let's see how the blade works. So let's line our fabric up over a little bit, and you'll control your speed with your foot pedal. Okay, it's going to start pulling it through right away, and you'll notice here it's clipping your thread as you go. Make sure to leave a tail, and you can cut your threads on the blade there. And here's your 4-thread overlock. Okay, so there's the front. The back looks similar. If you'll notice on the front, we have all these threads going zigzaggedy, and that is your upper looper thread. Your threads on the back are your lower looper threads. Now let's look at those 2 needle threads. This is your right needle thread, and here's your left needle thread. And this stitch is really strong because of those 2 needle threads. It just makes it really strong. Okay, and if we were to stitch this as a seam, and you open this up, it creates that really strong seam there, while also finishing the edge of your fabric so you don't get any frays. It just looks really nice and really professional. Okay, so this is stitching on a woven fabric. Let's check it out on a knit fabric. Have you ever tried stitching minky on a sewing machine? It can be a little bit tricky, but with the serger, it looks really awesome. Okay, so let's run 2 layers of minky through. And if you ever need to lift your foot up just to kind of flatten the fabric out, that's fine as well. Okay, so we cut some fabric off. It looks very nice and even. It didn't struggle with the fabric at all. And again, you can create a seam. So you can do some really fun things with this. You could even quilt a little bit. You could piece squares of Minky together and create a really neat blanket. So this is an awesome thing to do with Minky fabric. Okay, now here is a different type of knit. And this has a texture on one side. I wouldn't recommend serging on this unless you had a Teflon foot, but we could put the two layers together and create a seam. Okay, let's run that through. And make sure my layers stay lined up. Again, it didn't struggle with it at all. And one of my favorite things with the serger is serging on knits. And you'll notice it preserves the stretch of your knit. So you don't have to stretch it when you're running it through the serger. It just preserves that, so it continues to stretch. Okay, we'll open that up, and again, you have a very nice seam.